लंका को हनुमान ने नहीं जलाया था, लंका को रावण के अहंकार ने जलाया था।
हनुमान ने लंका नहीं जलाई, घमंड ने जलाई, और इसलिए 440 हो गए, 400 से 40 हो गए।
Everyone asks, if not Modi ji, then who? This inaction on Manipur, Honorable Prime Minister, where you had absolute power to intervene but did not, is a cornerstone after which India will say anyone but Modi.
For the first time, the words Bharat Mata have been expunged from the parliament. I have said Bharat Mata, which is an idea, which is the idea of India, where everybody lives peacefully, harmoniously, with affection, has been killed in Manipur. It's a fact.
पता नहीं क्यों कुछ लोगों को भारत माँ की मृत्यु की कामना करते नजर आ रहे हैं। इससे बड़ा दुर्भाग्य क्या है? दरअसल जो इनके मन में है वही उनके कृतित्व में सामने आ जाता है।
Hello and welcome to the political rumble with me, Rajdeep Sardesai. 3 days of an acrimonious confrontation in Parliament over a no-confidence motion has seen the political battle lines being drawn between the Modi government and the Congress-led opposition ahead of the big battle of 2024. A 2-hour-long speech by the Prime Minister, an equally long speech by Home Minister Amit Shah, an angry, much shorter speech by Rahul Gandhi, lots of shouting matches and even a walkout. The bugle for 2024 general elections has been sounded this week. What are the key takeaways then? On the political rumble, we will decode them. I'm joined on the show, Yogendra Yadav, co-founder Swaraj India, Pawan Kumar Verma, author, diplomat, former MP Rajya Sabha, Harsh Gupta Madhusudan, author, A New Idea of India and investor, Ashok Malik, partner, the Asia Group and senior political journalist and analyst. Patricia Mukim, editor, Shillong Times, is also joining us. Remember, it is Manipur and the Northeast which has been in the focus during this no-confidence motion. We're going to put specific questions and I'll take responses right at the top on the political rumble from each of you. My big question, my first big question, what was the most significant aspect for you of this no-trust debate? Let's get straight around the room. I'm going to start with you, Patricia, because let's get a voice from Shillong, from the Northeast. What to you was the most significant aspect of this no-confidence motion?
Rajdeep, the no-confidence motion was called precisely because Prime Minister Modi was not willing to come to Parliament. And he was evading this issue for a long time. Today we are on the 102nd day of the violence, and it does not seem to have abated at all. Things are happening, and there is a very clear division in Manipur where the hill people can no longer come to the valley and vice versa, and therefore there are disruptions galore, unexplainable, that people working in certain offices in the valley are not able to come back there for fear of losing their lives. And similarly, the Meiteis working in the hills have been given the option of being accommodated.
No, so how do you link that to the no-confidence motion? Are you saying that the no-confidence motion did not address this critical issue?
No, not these critical issues were not addressed. The Prime Minister showed that he was sad about the whole thing, but he was not specific. And you know, what hurts the people of Manipur the most is that he has not even deigned to visit that state. He sent the Home Minister, but you know, Prime Ministers are supposed to hold every state equal. If it was election time, I'm sure Prime Minister Modi would have come. He came to Meghalaya so many times in the run-up to the elections, and he has been going to the northeastern states several times as the star campaigner. But why not now?
Okay.
What is holding him back?
Okay, so you've set the stage, and I'll take short comments from all of you. Ashok Malik, respond. To Patricia Mukim, she seems to believe the most significant feature didn't address the crisis of Manipur at all.
Rajdeep, two things here. One, Manipur is a very, very disturbing situation, and very obviously, even if the sociology of Manipur is complex, even if the past has been complex, the point is, as the government of the day, the BJP in both Delhi and in Manipur, in Imphal, will take some responsibility. And obviously, it's not a situation which they can completely escape responsibility from. Even if they have not caused the problem, it's a problem for them to deal with. Having said that, when you table a no confidence motion against a government, any government, the debate can no longer remain a single issue debate, however important and serious that one issue may be. A no confidence motion becomes a much larger discussion and debate and audit, really, of a government's performance after 4 years, or in this case 9 years, call it what you will, on Manipur, on the economy, on various issues. So to suggest that an entire 3-day no confidence motion and debate can be reduced to just one issue, however important that issue, would be a little unrealistic. This has become a larger issue, a larger conversation or argument over the Modi government's performance over the past 4 years, of which Manipur is one part, but only one part.
Okay, that's an interesting way to put it. Pawan Verma, your view. A quick response. What is the most significant feature you saw in this 3-day no confidence motion?
Frankly, Rajdeep, I think the no confidence motion was moved with good intentions, but the opposition set a trap and walked into it itself. I say this with sadness because the opposition probably wanted to corner the government and especially Prime Minister Modi. Exactly the opposite happened, because Manipur was not the clear focus of the no confidence motion, although many speakers, especially from the opposition, focused on it. But a no confidence motion, and here I agree with Ashok, no confidence motion allows the government prime time on television to talk about what it has achieved and why it still needs to retain the confidence of the House and the people. And the opposition should have known that the last word will go to the Prime Minister, who is, as we all know, a great orator, and he will use that opportunity to speak about Manipur in part, and probably a very short part of his speech, but give a 2-hour presentation to the nation.
Right.
So about his achievements and what his ideas are.
So you're saying it's a lost opportunity?
The confidence motion did not serve.
It's a lost opportunity for the opposition.
And the opposition should have had a better strategy.
Okay. The opposition should have had a better strategy, lost opportunity.
It's a lost opportunity.
Harsh Madhusudan, your initial remark, the most significant feature that you saw in this 3-day no confidence motion.
Rajdeep, thank you for having me. My most significant takeaway from this was that unfortunately the opposition in our country does not seem to have an alternative proposal or policy agenda. As Ashok rightly mentioned, the moment you make it a no confidence motion, it cannot be a single issue anymore. You're basically going to the people through the House saying why the treasury should not be there and the opposition should be in the treasury instead. And there was absolutely no agenda on economics, on foreign policy, or even quite frankly on internal security. And I think the Prime Minister's response, probably the longest speech a Prime Minister has made on a no confidence motion, was equal part great oratory, but also a lot of frustration, I think, with the opposition. Because in the end, it was a non-event where the Prime Minister got to count his own achievements, the government's 9 years achievements. And the opposition was literally none the wiser. It walked out around half an hour before the speech ended. And the problem remains that there is no cohesive agenda to replace Modinomics, to replace Modi's views on cultural issues, to replace Modi's views on national and internal security. And as a common citizen, seeing those debates, all I understood was Modi hatao. It's the old Indira Gandhi kind of anti-one-person thing, and there was really nothing more to it. And that was very disappointing, no matter where your partisan sympathies may lie.
Okay. Yogendra Yadav, you've heard a lot of our speakers, at least a couple of them, suggesting that the opposition's missed opportunity, they didn't have a clear focus. For you, what was the most significant feature of this no confidence motion?
Rajdeep, I think it's only fair to begin by acknowledging that increasingly our parliament is basically a theatrical function. There isn't much debate that actually happens in the parliament. And one should not increasingly, unfortunately, and that's been the trend over the years, got worse and worse and worse now. So largely people watch it for the theatrics of it. And in that sense, whatever happened was fairly predictable, honestly. There was along the most the lines that you would have normally expected. And my sense is that even the perception of it has been so polarized. I guess some people were watching their YouTube videos of their liking, others were watching YouTube videos of their liking. I don't know if this debate actually affected the national consciousness or national mood in any substantial way. Two things, however, happened. Number one, this debate did place Manipur on the national agenda. And I think it's after a long, long time, perhaps for the first time, and clearly about the no confidence motions, one can say probably for the first time, that Northeast has been put at the center of the national consciousness. That it did succeed. It didn't succeed in getting any response from the government. What we got were very concrete allegations about past and very vague promises about future, nothing about the present. The other thing that this entire debate achieved, which has nothing to do with the debate itself, is that much greater cohesion in the opposition on the ground. So the India coalition seems to be working on the ground. These are the two things you would pick up from a debate which was otherwise fairly predictable.
Interesting aspects again there from Yogendra Yadav. I'll pick up on those in a moment, but that sets the stage really for my second question. And this is the question that's blowing in the wind. What is the narrative now for the 2024 elections? And I will link it to my third question in a way, so you're free to raise that. Will it be Modi versus Rahul again in 2024 as it was in 2019? Before I come to the panelists, I want to play out Rahul Gandhi's press conference on Friday outside Parliament on the issue of Bharat Mata and what Prime Minister Modi said on Bharat Mata, because there was an element of anger and bitterness on both sides. Listen in.
It's very interesting. For the first time, the words Bharat Mata have been expunged from the Parliament. It's an insult to those words. Whatever I said that is wrong. I have said Bharat Mata, which is an idea, which is the idea of India, where everybody lives peacefully, harmoniously, with affection, has been killed in Manipur. It's a fact. So, the word itself now cannot be spoken by the people of India. We cannot say Bharat Mata in Parliament.
यहाँ सदन में मां भारती के बारे में जो कहा गया है, उसने हर भारतीय की भावना को गहरी ठेस पहुंचाई। अध्यक्ष जी, पता नहीं मुझे क्या हो गया है। सत्ता के बिना ऐसा हाल किसी का हो जाता है। सत्ता सुख के बिना जी नहीं सकते हैं। और क्या क्या भाषा बोल रहे हैं। पता नहीं क्यों कुछ लोगों को भारत मां की मृत्यु की कामना करते नजर आ रहे हैं। जो इनके मन में है वही उनके कृतित्व में सामने आ जाता है।
Sharp comments on both sides. Ashok Malik, what is the narrative therefore for 2024 elections? Is it Modi versus Rahul again in 2024, or is that being overly simplistic in a country as large as India?
Rajdeep, two things. One, a micro answer, and the second, a macro answer. The micro answer, I do believe using the expression Bharat Mata ki Hatya was a bit of a wrong number by Rahul Gandhi, and at least two politicians, MPs from allied parties, that is, parties that are part of the India Alliance, the India Collective, not from the Congress, admitted that to me as well. I do believe this will come back to be used against Rahul Gandhi in the months to come, in the election campaign to come. Where that leads to, of course, is another matter. But I think that expression was avoidable in Parliament. Having said that, look, the no confidence motion, the debate that happened, the theatrics, as Ravindra Yadav puts it, perhaps justifiably, in Parliament, are different from an actual election, even if the results are the same. the two processes are very, very different. I think that the challenge for India remains one, of course, to find a narrative and a leader and an answer to the question of Modi and the unquestioned popularity of Modi, the appeal of Modi, which remains fairly strong from 2019 onwards. I'm sorry. What this no-confidence motion established is that whatever else, Modi is not unpopular. You could argue he's not as popular as 2019. He's less popular. He's more popular. That's a matter of debate. But his popularity is not under stress. That became very clear with this debate. Second, where does the India alliance see opportunities for one-to-one fights with the BJP? In which states can it ensure that states that are where one-to-one fights are currently not happening? And how do the social and political coalitions in Maharashtra and in Bihar sort of pair out or establish themselves in a national election as opposed to a state election?
Okay.
These questions are still up in the air. We don't have answers to them. India does not have answers to them. India is the coalition India. These questions have not been answered by this no-confidence motion or the coordination or lack of coordination in Parliament.
You know, in that sense, Pawan Verma, is that still the opposition's dilemma that it was before the no-confidence motion and possibly over the last 9 years? How do you, in a way, combat a popular prime minister by making an election not about leadership, but about issues?
That has been my point consistently, Rajdeep, that first the opposition decided to get organized as part of a joint alliance very late in the day, when less than a year, a couple of months are left for the general elections. Secondly, if they were serious about it, and I'm sure they are, by now a secretariat would have been set up, a common minimum program at the very least would have been drafted, talks on seat adjustments would be taking place. But these meetings separated by weeks that are happening, the pace at which things are proceeding, it does not give confidence that a good idea will see a concrete implementation in time to be effective. I may be wrong. And perhaps it would be good if I am, because this country needs an opposition. But as of now, to me, it doesn't seem so. Secondly, you ask the question of Modi versus Rahul. Now, as we know up till now, this narrative is useful for the BJP so long as the Congress does not strengthen itself on the ground, an organization, a structure. You please see the structure of the Congress in many states. There are block level presidents who have not been appointed for months, if not years. Kharge Sahab has taken over only recently. But he also has to get clearance from the actual person whose voice is heeded in the Congress party, which is Rahul Gandhi. Now, Mr. Rahul Gandhi came for the debate, well-intentioned, heart in the right place. I think he could have used his 40 minutes if his aim was to build a narrative to counter the personal cult around Narendra Modi, to build up this narrative that perhaps the BJP's ideology is dividing India, and to build it up in a structured way. I think when the Prime Minister said that thoda prepare karke to aiye, I think there is some merit on it, not because the Prime Minister is saying it. You have 40 minutes. Build up the problem. Build up the harm that is being done to the nation. I mean, he used one sentence. आपने सारी जगह केरोसिन छिड़क दिए, अब एक चिंगारी लगाने को बाकी. For God's sake, the nation is listening. Explain to him that this religious divisiveness, this polarization, this hate, this violence, this lack of trust, this divisiveness is going to create the idea, bury the idea of India and divide India. I mean, I don't think he developed the case strongly enough, and towards the end became rhetorical. And as you all know, when he speaks in Hindi, he can use awkward phraseology. If his attempt was to say that भारत माता को एक गहरी ठेस लगी है मणिपुर में, जैसे पूरे देश में आज समाज में वो विभाजन हो रहा है, I think that would have made greater sense than to say that Bharat Mata has been murdered.
Okay.
Now, not that he meant to say that, and his press conference clarified it, but it will be interpreted like that.
Oh, I take your point. Yogendra Yadav, as someone who knows Rahul Gandhi well, you were part of the Bharat Jodo Yatra. Is that a problem? That in a way, his use of Hindi phraseology, the fact that perhaps he isn't the greatest parliamentary debater, all of this came to haunt him during this no confidence motion. And is 2024 going to be Modi versus Rahul?
First, the big picture, Rahul. Rajdeep. Election is about several things. It is about organizational stuff, as Pawanji has reminded us. It is about social coalition, as Ashok has rightly pointed out. For the moment, I'll just set that aside. I'll simply focus on the issue of the narrative that we are discussing here. The fact is that BJP has controlled the narrative for almost 7-8 years. And the fact is that over the last 1 year, its stranglehold over the narrative has loosened a bit. It started loosening with the Bharat Jodo Yatra. After that, it's the Adani issue that was raised, which made difference. Rahul Gandhi's disqualification and his re-entry has definitely loosened BJP's hold over communication, over the narrative. Karnataka elections, and then the formation of India itself. All these things have slightly loosened that narrative. Has this debate dramatically changed it? I'm not sure in either direction. I think the debate almost retained the situation as it was. I really would have wished that the whole country would notice that Manipur exists, that Manipur is burning, and that something needs to be done. The opposition did try to make it. I don't know how much of that registered in any case, because the Northeast does not figure quite centrally. So has this focus on Manipur change popular opinions about Modi government? I'm not sure. About the Bharat Mata expression, yes, I mean, if the question is whether Mr. Modi is more proficient in his speech than Rahul Gandhi, the answer is quite obvious. But I think the simple point, the language, the body language, I think the simple point that the idea of India was being murdered is a point that was made. Does that point change the nature of national debate? I don't know. I don't think. Unfortunately, focus on the Northeast may not do that. But it did register something limited. Would the BJP want it to become Modi versus Rahul? Of course, BJP would like to do that. The gap between Modi and Rahul may have reduced. That's my sense. Maybe polls will tell you more accurately. The gap may have reduced, but Mr. Modi definitely has an advantage. Can the opposition make it Modi versus Mudda? That really is the challenge for which the opposition needs to work in the coming month or so.
Interesting. Modi versus Mudda is what Yogendra Yadav says should be the nature of the battle for the opposition. But Harsh Madhusudan, do you see elections in India becoming presidential, as in a way this no confidence motion was, at least on news TV and on the digital media? It was always who won the debate. Did Modi win it? Rahul Gandhi win it? Modi, obviously Mr. Modi, the much more charismatic performer, speaker in parliament. Do you believe that makes a difference? Is that how you think people will see the no confidence motion, and beyond that, the next few months leading into the general election, who should be my prime minister? We are a parliamentary system, 543 MPs.
I think, Rajdeep, yes, I think the nature of modern media and modern politics is leading to more decisive mandates, which is another way of saying presidential elections. I think, but that is only one aspect of it. I mean, the Modi versus Mudda phraseology of Yogendra, I think it's just slightly off in the sense that that is exactly what was missing from the opposition's point of view. So if you take a step back and look at the big picture, this is the year India is hosting G20. It is also heading SCO, I believe. We've just come out of a terrible pandemic, and India has done better than most people expected in terms of vaccination. The Prime Minister is speaking of becoming the world's third largest economy within his third term. So that's both a policy aim as well as political confidence. And he mentioned, for example, that if you think it will not happen, please mention why. If you think it can happen faster, please help us why. If you think something else can be done. But nowhere in any of the debates was anything pertaining to the average person of the country was mentioned as a policy idea by the opposition. So if somebody is looking and they're thinking, okay, well, they just want to be in power, but what do they have in store for me? Remember Rahul Gandhi, who is the de facto unofficial leader of the Congress party, maybe the India Alliance or not, it's difficult to say at this point. He's not been a chief minister, he's never been a union minister. There is no Gujarat model or even Kerala model or any model that he can speak of as his USP if he effectively comes to power. So then what really changed? I don't think the gap between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Rahul Gandhi or any opposition figure has changed. On the topic of Bharat Mata, I think it's very interesting that Bharat Mata ki Jai is increasingly seen as a Hindutva or a BJP slogan. At the same time, there is this kind of last moment rush to reappropriate that slogan, which at one point somebody like Indira Gandhi would have been very happy to say. And unfortunately, that has completely gone to the BJP from the point of view of the opposition. And this last moment search will not really change anything. And finally, I like to simply say that on that point, for example, Mahua Mitra of Trinamool said she was ashamed that, religious priests or seers of the majority faith is the word she used, where the Prime Minister bowed down to them in the inauguration of the new parliament. Now, this is the same party alliance grouping that is completely against secular common laws. But they are against a simple symbolic recognition of India's civilizational continuity that, oh my God, how can the Prime Minister actually bow down in front of these adhinams from Tamil Nadu? And she specifically mentioned from the majority faith, implying as if it was a minority faith, it would have been fine with her. And therefore, when you leave out the majority completely and you almost viscerally attack them, when you leave out Bharat Mata until the last moment, and then you feel it's a mudda or it's a presidential election, the simple point is for the last 9 years, the opposition has left the center. Okay. And the Prime Minister is making hay while the sun is shining.
Well, the sense I got about what Mahua Moitra said was the fact that the Prime Minister is often absent in Parliament, doesn't speak out enough in Parliament, but gives the photo ops when the new Parliament was inaugurated, bowing before religious figures. But yes, you could also argue that she was referring to majority faith. I don't think she was necessarily going to support him bowing before a minority faith. But Yogendra Yadav, before I go to Patricia Mukim, let's settle this narrative point. You said Modi versus Mudda. Is part of the problem that the opposition should do, is part of the problem that as long as Rahul Gandhi is there leading the opposition and is seen as a mascot now for anti-Modi forces, willy-nilly it will be Modi versus Rahul again. Even if the opposition wants to make it Modi versus Mudda, it won't become that.
Rajdeep, if Rahul Gandhi were to disappear tomorrow, what will it be? Will it immediately become Modi versus Mudda? Then it will be Modi versus a question mark. Again, the same thing would be played out. So the real question is how much of the election would be focused on the personality issue. And yes, on the personality issue, BJP has an advantage which I think is lessening, but it has an advantage. And the opposition needs to play it, whether it has the time. I do think they have the time. I do think opposition needs to speeden up things, but I don't think it's so late that nothing can be done about the narrative so far. Yes, the Mudda issue, the real issues of unemployment, issues of price rise, and the most important thing about Adani, which was played out by the Congress, Rahul mentioned it, but over the last few months it's kind of petered off. Can the opposition bring that back? These are the questions that we need to talk about. But yes, as long as it remains personality, whether it's Modi versus Rahul, Modi versus Nitish, Modi versus Mamata, I don't think it will be very different. Do you think it will become very different? Suddenly, if tomorrow it were to be Modi versus Nitish, will the entire nation swing in favor of the India coalition? I doubt it. Similar things would be raised.
Yeah, but the challenge is, of course, localizing a national election, not easy. As for Adani, of course, many opposition leaders themselves have Mr. Adani investing in their state, so will they want to make it an issue is another big question. But Patricia Mukim, let's come to you with the next question. which in a way was meant to be the centerpiece of this entire no confidence motion, Manipur. Yogendra Yadav says for the first time at least Northeast is firmly on the national consciousness because of Manipur. But is the Manipur question still unanswered? You're in Shillong in Meghalaya, but from a perspective of the Northeast, do you believe that these debates have actually put Northeast on the national consciousness, on the national map, really?
Look, Rajdeep, Manipur is not the Northeast. Every state has its difficulties, has its nuances, and we are glad that Manipur has got the limelight. But for what? See, I really want to say one thing here. Parliamentary debates are not about who has won and who has lost. I think this is a media narrative that has been created since yesterday. Now, is the media pitting one group against the other? And for India, the group called India, the political alliances, I think they are themselves in a bit of a muddle because they're not very good with their strategies, and they shouldn't have walked out yesterday when the Prime Minister started speaking about Manipur, because that was an opportunity lost, I feel. And, you know, in Parliament today, there's so much of outrage. There are so much of snide remarks which never were there in the past. And everything is lost in that din of tu me me, no? So the issues that really affect us as a country are not being addressed. One of which is, you know, what is the common man suffering from at the moment? Look at the price rise of essential commodities. Nobody is speaking about that, and they're supposed to represent us, the common people. I think hate politics has entered Parliament in a big way. I would really like to appeal to people from the India group and tell them that you don't win elections by moral outrage, by frothing at the mouth, by all these polemics, and you actually don't win election by rhetoric. You'll have to show something concrete on the ground and connect with people rather than, you know, looking for the limelight in Parliament.
You know, you mentioned the word hate politics. Ashok Malik, pick up on that because, you know, Asaduddin Owaisi was among those who referred to the hate crime, the horrific hate crime that took place in a railway compartment a few weeks ago, which somehow has got shadowed by all that has happened. Not too many people spoke about it, but it was horrific the way a railway constable has committed what by all accounts is a hate crime, killing 3 Muslims. We've had trouble in Nu, in other parts of the country in the last few months. You know, there is a sense that that level of hatred and polarization outside is also being carried inside Parliament. And the two sides, there's a breakdown of trust. Do you get a sense that these issues are not being addressed? There's too much of anger and hate inside Parliament and, dare I say, outside. You're on mute.
I'm sorry. Rajdeep, I tend to agree with you that our public discourse has become rather coarse. But it's not just our politics. Quite honestly, it's even our television channels, to be honest with you, our media, the way we seem to be discussing politics across this country. I'll give you one example, since Patricia Mukim is from Meghalaya, a state my wife grew up in. And let's talk about Manipur. Manipur is, and the 7 states, well, if you include Sikkim, the 8 states of the region we call the Northeast, and that expression is very frustrating because it means nothing. It hides the complexity and the uniqueness of each of those states. The sociology of those 7 or 8 states, pick the one you want, collectively is more complex than the sociology, I would dare say, of the other 23 or 24 states of our country. And yet we, in our analysis, whether we come from the political sphere, whether we come from journalism, media, analysis, anywhere, we tend to simplify it. What has happened in Manipur over the past 3 months is horrific, tragic, terrible, and complex. But at its root, it is many things. It is not a simplistic Hindu-Christian riot, which is what many have sought to reduce it to. And this is also part of the problem. We tend to reduce very complex and serious issues, which have multiple dimensions, into something very simplistic as X versus Y, Hindu versus Muslim, Christian versus Hindu, Christian versus Muslim. There is a problem with the way we discuss national issues. And this problem is not limited to politicians or to parliamentarians.
I would plead also, guilty on behalf of the entire media, which also is reducing these complex issues to binaries, black versus white, and some would accuse, at least some are actually profiting from this kind of hate generated even in TV studios, digital and social media. Pawan Verma, is that part of the problem? That politicians today have one eye during no confidence motion on the viral videos. So they are also creating a template of which is based on anger and hate rather than reconciliation and empathy.
No, you're right, Rahul, but I think if the opposition sought to achieve its primary goal of getting the Prime Minister to speak on Manipur, let us assume that was their primary goal, and to have a discussion under 267. I think for that goal to be achieved, the no confidence motion route was the wrong one. I believe that, for instance, when Amit Shah agreed to a debate on Manipur, a serious debate without duration defined, every member of the opposition should have stood up and begun their speeches by first saying, putting on record that we express our deep anguish at the absence of the Prime Minister, and then gone on to focus exclusively on Manipur. And then the country would have seen a debate on a state which has been burning for 90 days. And without the Prime Minister speaking once or going to the state. Instead, they moved a no confidence motion. Now, if you move a no confidence motion and if hate is your structure, Rajdeep, let me tell you, recently in a national daily, R. Jagannathan, who is a supporter of the BJP, wrote a piece, and the editor of Swarajya magazine, where he said that forget your dreams of a 5 trillion economy if you are going to continue with this kind of religious polarization. Now, here is a BJP supporter, an insider, speaking openly about the dangers of religious polarization. If you raise a no confidence motion, build it up in a structured way. Unemployment, price rise, common man, rising inequality, authoritarianism, and social disharmony at the cost of the nation. Now, I don't think that narrative, that mudda, was built up enough. So we ended up falling flat between two stools. Neither Manipur was discussed fully,
right,
nor were the other issues presented in an effectively structured manner. And you gave a floor at the end of the debate to Narendra Modi, who spoke for 2 hours.
And
that speech was listened to by the entire nation.
Can I just pick up from what Pawan Verma said, Harsh Madhusudan, that in a way, the fact is that there are real issues out there. There are issues of income inequalities. There are issues of polarized politics. There are issues of institutions in some way being undermined. I mean, let's be very clear. The Prime Minister listed out achievements, but the Prime Minister will not look at perhaps the darker side. The opposition tried to gherao him, but they too will not look at the positives. We are a very polarized politics. We are in a very polarized polity at the moment. Do you see a way out? I mean, purely as a citizen. I mean, these are real issues when a hate crime takes place of the kind that took place in that railway compartment.
Yes. So Rajdeep, democracies everywhere are always polarized. The question is about the extent of polarization. So, for example, if you look at Pew surveys overwhelmingly say that Indians of all religious faiths find India to be overwhelmingly tolerant, and this, by the way, happened during the Modi government's time, a couple of years ago, or just last year, in fact. Similarly, if you look at the popularity of leaders and statesmen by countries, Narendra Modi has consistently ranked at the top. So there is polarization, but it's not a 50-50 polarization. The Prime Minister is remarkably popular. So the idea that we are polarized, yes, you're polarized all the time. If you go and read 19th century American newspapers, both before and after the Civil War, it would have felt like it would have been much worse. So polarization is a part and parcel of politics. But compared to other periods, compared to earlier periods, there does not seem to be that kind of Republican-Democrat kind of, for example, 50-50 on the knife's edge situation in India right now. I repeat once again that we should not get lost in this inception of narratives. The facts are that most Indians find India to be remarkably tolerant. There are obviously issues, for example, in which a Hindu procession was attacked by Muslims, and you mentioned about the train accident in which a railway police officer killed 3 Muslims. And these are all condemnable incidents like Manipur is. But in a country of 1.4 billion, you have to look at trends. And if you look at the trends, all kinds of violence, communal in the northeast, Naxal violence, jihadi violence in Kashmir, they're all on a, please pardon the pun, secular decline over the last, not just 10 years, but 10, 20, 30 years.
Okay.
The Indian state is constantly winning right, left and center. And therefore it is important, while we do this tutu meme, as Patricia rightly mentioned, that the big picture is India is rising, the Prime Minister is talking about number 3 economy. And what is the vision of the opposition to come and say, how can we make it better? How can we reach there faster? And it is surprising. I mean, you attack the Prime Minister and the party, no problems at all. But is there even 1% policy discussion? Mudda was mentioned by Yogendra. What is the common minimum program, as Pawan rightly mentioned? There is no CMP and there is less than a year out.
Yogendra Yadav, in a way, the Prime Minister referred to it, and many critics of the opposition refer to this, that there is a negativism, a pessimism in the opposition which doesn't match, according to the government's cheerleaders, the reality on the ground. The reality on the ground, Harsh Madhusudan says, as the PM says, India will be the 3rd largest economy soon. We are a country which is getting more FDI than ever before. We are slowly, in certain key areas, becoming a manufacturing hub. Why not? Is the opposition not being able to capture the zeitgeist of this new rising India, as the government cheerleaders call it?
Rajdeep, your question contains the answers. Cheerleaders do not ever see the truth. I heard Mr. Harsh saying that the big picture is that India is getting more tolerant, that polarization is reducing. I don't know whether to laugh or to cry at this kind of things, and that someone with a straight face can say such things on national television. Probably, I don't know, I'm sure he lives in the same country that I do. Here is a country where people are going on the streets saying Musalmano ko kal se gaon mein ghusne nahi denge, ye kar denge, ban kar denge, lynchings are taking place, no is taking place. And someone can say on national television that we are becoming more tolerant, that things are becoming less polarized. Yes,
I'll let you
political
respond,
polarization, ideological polarization is one thing, and this kind of ethnic polarization, this kind of communal polarization, with clear protection from above, with clear sanction from above, this is extraordinary. I'm absolutely shocked that someone cannot see it. But allow me to say something that I wanted to say, namely about Manipur. I don't think we should get distracted by such things which anyone can come up with any time. On Manipur, if I was from Manipur and I was watching this debate, I would say, all right, for the first time they acknowledge that Manipur exists. All right, they're all talking about my state. At the end of it, what do I take away more than the anguish? Of course, the anguish. But I get to share about the past. I get to share about Mizoram. Yes, important thing, Rajdeep, is I think for the first time, I could be wrong, but I think for the first time in Indian parliamentary history, Prime Minister of this country has acknowledged that Indian Air Force had bombed Mizoram, which was such a shameful episode in our history. But that was not said for remorse. That was not said to offer an apology to people of Manipur. That was said to score a tiny, trite, petty debating point in a parliamentary debate. As a Manipuri, as a Meitei, do I feel I got assurance that, all right, things would get better? As a Kuki, do I feel that, no, I would not be called foreigner in my own land? As a Naga, do I feel that now my issues would be looked at with more empathy? If I was from Manipur, from either of these communities, or if I was from the Northeast, any other state of Northeast, I would feel like a football. And sheer indifference of the government, even at the end of perhaps the only debate of its kind in India's parliamentary history. If the Prime Minister and Home Minister of this country do not have anything to offer by way of a chief minister who's proven to be the most incompetent chief minister. Nothing about by way of security forces, their presence and their conduct, where the central and the state security forces are clashing on the streets. Nothing to say about those things. This is very disappointing.
Harsh Madhusudan, quick response, because
Rajdeep,
to your point that we are a more tolerant nation.
There is a June 2021 Pew survey in which 24% of Indian Muslims, and Pew is a very reputed American survey organization with a very, very proper scientific stratified random sampling procedure, 24% of Indian Muslims said they face discrimination, and 21% of Indian Hindus said they face discrimination. There were many questions, you can go through it, and the overall picture is most Indians feel that they're living in harmony. This is a 2021 survey by Pew, number one. So these are facts, not narratives that we are inventing in our own minds. Secondly, speaking of communal violence in the Northeast, what happened in the Nelly riots? The Nelly riots happened in the 1980s. 2,000 or more people died, and there was zero accountability. I'm not saying it in the sense of whataboutery, although whataboutery is a perfectly valid tool to have accountability. The point is the trend for violence in India is consistently downwards, and I'm saying it is across governments. I'm not saying it's only for BJP or for Congress. I'm saying across governments, Indian state capacity violence has been falling. So the reality is violence is overall falling. Most Indians, including Muslims, say that they find they're living in harmony. These are facts. These are survey results. If Yogendra Yadav doesn't believe them, maybe he's living in another country.
Okay. As I said, there will be certain issues that will continue to divide us in the times in which...
I do believe in survey results. When Hindus say they are being discriminated, they are speaking about caste. Please get your basics right.
Okay, as I said, this is an issue which we will amplify in later
this is only on religion. This is not on caste.
Okay.
This is on religion.
Okay, we will discuss the wider religious polarization in future programs, but as I end with a couple of minutes, I want to know, I'm going to ask the question, who won the debate? And did any speaker stand out? Quick responses as we have just a couple of minutes. Patricia Mukim, again go first. Who, according to you, who won the debate? Did any speaker stand out?
Nobody won the debate. The people of India have lost. We've lost out in the din.
Okay, that's a very strong word, and maybe you're right. The people of India have lost out. They could have done with a better constructed debate, many would believe. Ashok Malik, who won the debate? Any speaker who stood out?
I have a more prosaic answer than Patricia Mukim. The opposition could not establish that the country had no confidence in Mr. Modi and his government. So in that sense, Mr. Modi carried the day. Speakers who stood out, actually many speakers stood out. Mr. Owaisi stood out. Mr. Modi, of course, stood out. He was expected to stand out. But I've been listening to parliamentary speeches and watching parliamentary speeches for many years, as all of us on this panel have. I was particularly impressed by Amit Shah's speech. I think it will go down as one of the great parliamentary speeches I've heard.
Interesting. Pawan Verma, who won the debate?
You know, the young Mr. Gogoi who began the debate, I think he made a structured speech. But the fact of the matter is, I would say that Mr. Rahul Gandhi missed an opportunity. Missed an opportunity to prove his credentials of being entitled to play a leading role in the opposition. And the opposition's presentations were not structured. So therefore, I have to say that the speech that was given by the Prime Minister at the end of the debate, if you ask any ordinary person, I'm not talking about its factual accuracy in every respect, or the merits of what he said, which can be questioned on many of his claims. But as an orator, there are few to match him.
Point taken.
And the opposition presented him that opportunity on a platter.
I'm running out of time completely. Harsh Madhusudan, who won the debate very quickly, and any star speaker who stood out for you?
I think the Prime Minister came across as a global statesman who the opposition could not pin down on any substantive issue. I think the best speaker by far was Mr. Amit Shah, and actually in some ways, it was almost like that he was being given the opportunity to to kind of take over on many substantive issues. Like he was relatively quiet after the CAA days on these various issues after 370 and CA. So I thought that was very interesting from a communication perspective, because he was absolutely brilliant, not just the last 3 days, but even today in introducing these 3 new bills, reforming CRPC, reforming Evidence Act, reforming IPC. So a lot of work is happening, and I thought the way he communicated was very brilliant. And perhaps better than a lot of people would have expected.
Yogendra, yeah, the final word. Who won the debate? Any speaker stood out?
Rajdeep, what was at issue was too critical, too big for us to award debating points and gold medals or silver medals. The tragedy, as Patricia rightly points out, is that in perhaps the only, and maybe for years to come, the only debate that took place on one part of the northeast of this country, the people of northeast lost out. The people of India lost out.
Okay, let me leave it there. My own view, 2 speakers also stood out for me. Amit Shah and Gaurav Gogoi, for the way they structured their speeches. We can disagree with their political views, but they seem to be 2 speakers who really stood out. Among others, Asaduddin Owaisi's speech was also worth listening to. And the Prime Minister and Rahul Gandhi for some of you, but for me it was Shah and Gogoi this time. Okay, so most political observers, including myself, believe this was a bit of a missed opportunity for the opposition and Rahul Gandhi, and the Modi-Shah duo carried the day inside Parliament. But there is a reality check, a fact check that we thought we'd give you. Amit Shah in his speech in Parliament said it was the Modi government schemes that benefited Kalavati Bandurkar, a widow from the Vidarbha farm suicides. Rahul Gandhi had met Kalavati in 2008 after her husband died by suicide due to agrarian crisis. Who really benefited Kalavati? Was it the Modi government or Rahul Gandhi? We did a fact check by speaking to her. I leave you with what Kalavati said, with the hope that our politicians will help everyone who needs empathy, whether it's in Manipur or Maharashtra. It's that spirit of empathy we need to take forward. Thanks for watching. Listen to Kalavati. Bye for now. Jai Hind. Namaskar. Have a great Independence Day weekend.
मुलं आपले 7 मुली 2 मुलं होते, तर आपले याची परिस्थिती गंभीर होती पा, म्हणून सनेनी त्यानं आर्थिक मदत म्हणून सनेनी केली आपल्याला. तर त्यानं 15 दिवसाच्या याच्यामध्ये त्यानं सर्व हे केलं ना, आपलं पाठक साहेबांना आपल्याला चेक आणून दिला. तर तो 52 फिक्स करून सनेनी त्यापासून आता त्यानं आपल्याला आले तशामध्ये ते घरकुलाचं मंजूर केलं. आपल्याला लाईन नव्हती, ती लाईन तवाच्या तवास आपले पोरं असेच अभ्यास करत होते दिवा घेऊन, तर तवास त्यानं लाईन आणून दिली. आपल्याला खरी सर्व मदत केली राहुल गांधीनं. राहुल गांधीचीच मदत आपल्याला शेवटपर्यंत आपली हे करणार, आणि त्याचीच मी गावणार.